Okay, hi again, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, SEO Audit 101, where we'll walk you through how to take your SEO from so-so to stellar just in time for 2020. My name is Jane Serra. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Hawk SEM, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. I will introduce you to our amazing presenter, Justine, in just a bit, so stay tuned. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. Today's webinar is using the Zoom platform, which many of you are probably familiar with, but just in case, you can join audio via your computer, your tablet, your phone, or you can call in directly from your phone if you prefer that. If you're on the move, you can always take this as a podcast and watch the video later. Also, if you have any questions during the webinar, type them into the Q&A box on your Zoom panel. It should be towards the bottom. And we will have a Q&A section at the end where these will be addressed. So you can also see a hand raise option. So if you have any issues or problems or questions, I can always talk to you via that. And there's a chat option where you can chat directly with me. If you can't hear something or you want to repeat something, just let me know there. And again, just submit any questions via Q&A. Also, this webinar is being recorded, so we will have a share link to the recording within 48 hours, give or take. And yeah, let's get started. So today, this is what we will walk through, SEO Audit 101. We're going through the welcome and intro right now, so almost through the first step. Then I'll give you a little bit of background on who we are at Hawk SEM in case you're not familiar with us. I'll keep it brief, I promise. Then we'll dive into the meat of today's webinar, 10 steps to a successful SEO audit via Justine. We'll do a quick little recap and then we'll turn it over to Q&A. So any questions you have, again, submit anytime and we will answer it at the end. So real quick, just about Hawk SEM, we are a full service digital marketing agency. We have all of these services here from paid search to paid social, remarketing, of course, SEO, Amazon advertising, etc., even beyond what you see on the screen. But today we will be focusing primarily on SEO. And what makes us different from other agencies or options out there? The Conversion IQ system, this is our unique smart way of marketing. Basically, it makes sure that we focus on revenue. We tie all leads that come in via our advertising efforts to revenue at the end of the day. Second, we're all marketing scientists at heart. We don't have a separate analytics division. Everybody is very analytical and data-driven, as you'll see with Justine in a little bit. We only hire senior managers. We don't have any junior marketers working on your account. We also execute. While everybody is a strategist, we also perform execution. So that sounds horrible, but we execute on what we recommend in the to-do list. We don't just give you a to-do list for your team to carry out. And lastly, we don't set it and forget it. So we're very focused on the human touch and making sure that our team is focused on constantly iterating on new changes and tips. And lastly, we cover all industries. We work with clients from retail to FinServ to higher ed to travel. So you can see a few of our clients here, our client portfolio. So I promised I'd keep it short. And now I'll give you a little bit of background on today's speaker, Justine. Justine is our lead strategist here at Hawk SEM. She has worked in digital marketing for 5 years plus with clients across multiple verticals, including healthcare, travel and tourism, hospitality, real estate, etc. She has many years of experience across the digital landscape, including today's topic, SEO, but also PPC, social media, and content marketing, and even more. She never makes a decision without consulting the data, again, as you'll see today. And she spends her spare time running, cooking, and reading, and being awesome. I'm sure you'll love her like I do. And before I pass it over to you, Justine, I'm just going to do a quick poll to share with the audience to see what level of expertise we're speaking with today. So real quick, we'll launch this now. If you guys can just answer the poll, it should pop up on your screen. What's your current level of experience with SEO? Are you a newbie, some basic knowledge, advanced knowledge, or are you a pro? Okay, thanks everyone for participating. I'll let a few more votes come in, give a few more seconds. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up and share the results with you guys. It looks like we have a really good mix of folks here with varied experience in SEO, Justine. So from newbie to basic knowledge, We have a couple of pros here and advanced knowledge as well, so widespread.
All right, thanks for the intro, Jane, and thanks everyone for taking the poll. That helps me know who I'm speaking to, and we're really excited to have you here today. We've got a lot to cover, so I want to dive right in. So why is SEO important? Why are we talking about this? Because ranking on page 1 of Google can bring significant traffic, raise brand awareness, and drive conversions for your brand and your website, whether that be revenue through a purchase or if it's leads. Google's a huge source of opportunity. And why SEO is so important is that 75% of people never scroll past the first page of search engines. You've probably experienced that as a searcher yourself. So it's really important at the core of any SEO strategy is improving your rankings and trying to crack onto that first page. So today we're going to be talking about SEO audits, and within that framework, we're going to be talking about the 3 pillars of SEO. So on-site structure, that's sort of the more technical back end of things, how to run a technical audit, what your indexing status looks like, how to focus on mobile usability and page speed, and analyzing user behavior. Then we're going to move into content, where we're going to talk about understanding your audience and their pain points, how to generate compelling content for users and not search engines, how to have a content revitalization strategy, and how to leverage video and image content. And then we're going to wrap it up talking about links. So cleaning up backlinks to remove any spammy links that might be in your backlink profile, building new and authoritative links, and using internal links with keyword-rich anchor text. So we're going to kick things off with the on-site structure, sort of the technical side of things. And generally, when we're talking about SEO audits, this is the first thing that comes to everybody's mind. So we're going to cover high-level technical issues, mobile performance, page speed, and user behavior. So there are lots of different tools out there that will help you audit your site and uncover any technical issues that might be going on. This particular screenshot is from SEMrush. But like I said, there's lots of other tools out there. This is one that we use pretty frequently. And it's nice because it gives you that high-level overview of errors, which are more serious issues, warnings, which should be addressed but aren't as pressing, and notices, which are really just for you to be aware of and address if there's anything major going on in there. So when you run a site crawl, these are some of the things that these tools are looking for. And I realize this slide probably looks really scary. There's a lot of technical jargon in here, words that you might not know what they mean. And that's why it's important to have an SEO expert as well as a development team to work on your site, because we work with this type of language every day. We understand what it means. We know how to fix these issues. So that's why it's important to have an expert on your team. The other thing I'll say about crawling and technical issues is that it should never be a one and done exercise. This is something that you should do regularly. I'd say at least probably once a month, maybe more frequently depending on the size of your site, because new issues can crop up all the time. So it's important to always have a pulse on anything new that might pop up. So once you've run a technical crawl, or while you're running the technical crawl and waiting for it to give you the results, something else you'll want to do is actually check what pages are indexed in Google and other search engines. And it's pretty simple to do this. All you have to do is type site : whatever your domain is. In this example here, we have Hawk SEM. What this allows you to do is see if there are pages that should not be indexed. For example, development pages is a really common one that I see. Landing pages like PPC or social media landing pages is another common one. So just make sure that there's no pages that should absolutely not be indexed. And the other side of that coin is if you have pages that are missing from the index. If for some reason the crawlers aren't getting to your blog content, for example, you'd want to address that and understand why it's not crawling and indexing as it should be. So again, this is a really simple exercise. It's going to take you a while if you have a lot of pages on your site, but you just click through the different results. In this case, we are going past page 1, but again, it helps you get an understanding of where you're at and what pages are indexed. So this is probably not surprising, as most of you have probably done a Google search on your phone, but mobile now accounts for most of all Google searches, 58%. Something that I hear pretty frequently from B2B marketers is, well, most of my traffic and conversions comes from desktop, so why should I care about mobile? The answer is people are using mobile more and more frequently, but also Google is crawling the mobile version of your site first. This is a relatively recent update that's come out, and you're going to have a really hard time ranking well if your mobile site is not crawlable or if it's just not up to snuff where it should be. So even if most of your traffic is coming from desktop, it's still extremely important to pay attention to your mobile site and your mobile experience. So how do we do this? How do we know if our site is mobile friendly? So Google actually has a testing tool to help you do this. It's called the Google Mobile Friendly Test. And I just want to show you guys a couple of examples here of the results that you might get as you run through this test. So here's an example if your page is not mobile friendly. This is what Google will tell you. You can see in this example that it's a pretty ugly looking site. It's not super user friendly on mobile, and you can see that the crawlers are also having a hard time. The cool thing about this tool is that it will actually give you suggestions on how to fix some of these issues and how to make your site mobile friendly. So that's really helpful. You can click through these resources. Again, you're going to see a lot of very technical jargon, and you're going to need a developer most likely to help you fix some of these issues and make sure that your site is mobile friendly. The other thing that I'll say is that in the past, it used to be best practice to have a separate mobile site. So like an M dot, for example, and that's not really best practice anymore. What you want is one website that's responsive to all device sizes, because device sizes vary pretty greatly. Somebody working on a laptop versus a monitor versus a mobile phone versus a tablet. You want to make sure that your site's responsive and will adjust to whatever screen size the user is using. And then if your site is mobile friendly, like Hawks, you'll get this result here where it tells you your page is mobile friendly. You have the option to dive into different usability recommendations that Google might have. You'll probably see this page loading issues. Really, all that's going to show you is different scripts and things like that that probably shouldn't be crawled anyway. So don't worry too much. You'll want to have a developer take a look and make sure that there's nothing super important being missed here. But in general, as long as your page is mobile friendly, that's what we're looking for here. Okay, so a lot of people think mobile friendliness and page speed are tied together, and it's true, they're very closely related, but page speed is a very separate, also equally important ranking factor. 40% of users abandon a site if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. And while 3 seconds sounds really fast, we've all been trained in the age of the internet and everybody having access to the internet at their hands, really with their smartphones. We've been trained as users to want it immediately. If we don't get it immediately, then we'll go find somebody who will give us the information we're looking for, because there's probably other websites out there that will load faster. So page speed is extremely important. And as we're measuring page speed, Google also has a tool for this. I'll say that a lot today because Google has lots of tools that are great for helping you identify SEO issues. So this graphic here on the left shows us how users interact as page speed gets slower. Probably doesn't surprise you that the slower the site loads, the more likely that people bounce. And when we say bounce, what we mean is the website doesn't even load, or it loads, but the user leaves immediately without taking any sort of action. So that's what we don't want to happen. And I mentioned earlier that 40% of people leave if it doesn't load within 3 seconds. The average load time is about 6 seconds, and that varies on depending on the industry. But again, you can see it's a huge issue for a lot of people. I think at this time, what we'd like to do, if anybody wants to offer up their site, we can do a live test using the Page Speed Insights tool, and I can sort of walk you through some of the recommendations that Google might have. So if anybody wants to submit their site for the test, feel free to use the chat option to do that now.
Yep, if anybody wants to submit their URL, feel free to type it into either the Q&A or the chat box. Okay, I'm going to go with the first person. We have, a few. Look at you guys. profedcu.org.
Okay, so So this sometimes takes a minute.
Thank you,
but
Rachel.
as I'm running this, I'm just going to chat because it does take a minute or two. So again, what this tool is going to do is it's going to show us your page speed on desktop as well as mobile. I would guess that your desktop speed's probably faster. And wow, look at this. You guys have great page speed on mobile. You can see the ranking here is 0 to 49, 50 to 89, 90 to 100. I will say it's extremely difficult to get into this 90 to 100 range. It's just very, very tough. So 77 is actually great mobile speed. That's very impressive. And then we can see on desktop, there we go. It's green. See 94. That's really great. That's one of the better ones that I've seen. So kudos to you guys. But of course, there are going to be some recommendations, especially on mobile. And again, as we scroll down here, you'll see there's a lot of technical jargon. You know, what is first meaningful paint? What is speed index? What is time to interactive? And you'll see some of these metrics are green, which means they're great. Some of these metrics are red, which means that they could be worked on. So again, this is where you'll want a developer to come in, be able to help address these issues. And what's great about this tool is it will actually give you specific opportunities and recommendations. So again, a developer is going to be able to help you sort of dive into this. A lot of what we see in this example is related to images, which is extremely common, as well as excess CSS, which is what helps give the visual look of your website. So these are pretty common, but again, it's a great tool to help you identify where there might be opportunities. So going back here. Next, we're going to dive into how to analyze user behavior on your site. The screenshot here is from Google Analytics, which is probably one of, if not the most important tool in your SEO arsenal. It's completely free. So if you haven't signed up, you don't have an analytics profile yet, highly recommend that you sign up and get one because it's extremely helpful and it's going to allow you to measure your SEO success. So the screen here, what we're looking at is organic traffic. You can see there's a segment in the top left that shows us we're looking at just organic. And when we talk about organic traffic in analytics, we're actually talking about all search engines because yes, there are other search engines besides Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo. There's other smaller ones out there. Those are the big ones, I would say. Generally, most of the time, your site traffic is largely going to be from Google, but this report does show all organic traffic. So just want to add that caveat. And what we can also see here, you can find this report. If you go in analytics, you go under the audience section, it's the audience overview. And what we can see here is how many sessions we're driving from organic traffic, how many users we're getting, how long are they staying on the site, how many pages are they visiting, what's the bounce rate, and what's our percentage of new users versus returning users. So one quick note here on the on-site stats, because these are common questions that I get. You know, what's a good bounce rate is really common. And the answer is there really isn't one. And these types of metrics, bounce rate, average session duration, pages per session, Google doesn't necessarily use these in their ranking algorithms. They do to a certain degree, but it's not the way that we look at it here. It's very different. So these metrics are important because what you want to do is if you have pages that are extremely important, for example, you have a pillar page that describes your core service or product, and the bounce rate is high, say over 80%. And again, to define what a bounce is, somebody who enters your site and takes no further action, they immediately leave. So if a page like that has a really high bounce rate, that's concerning because it means people aren't engaging with your content. If, for example, it's a blog post that has a high bounce rate, let's say 80% as an example, but your average session duration on that page is, say, 1.5 minutes, that probably means that people are reading your content. They're just not taking further action. So that's very different than somebody who's just not engaging at all. So just wanted to make a quick note there on those on-site stats. They're good to look at, and we'll actually look at those a little bit more in depth on this slide, where we break down specific landing pages. Again, this is organic traffic only. We're using Hawk here as an example. So what you'll see here is that most of our sessions are being driven by the homepage. Very common, I would say most websites that the homepage is the top driver of traffic. And then as we get down into some other pages, the traffic gets lower. And again, what this report helps you do, if you look in analytics under behavior, site content landing page. That's where you'll want to look for this. It tells you how people are interacting on specific pages in specific sections of your website. So again, we'll see in this example here on line 6, the PPC ROI blog has a high bounce rate, but at the same time, it has a decent average session duration. So again, people are engaging with the content, they're reading it. They're just not, going to a next page, but that's very common on blog posts. So again, don't take these numbers right at face value. Don't panic if the bounce rate looks super high or your average session duration looks low, because it really, you have to look at it all in context. And as the SEO program goes on, what your goal should be is to get more traffic to some of these internal pages as opposed to, the homepage. So for example, in the screenshot, the what we do page that's at the bottom there, we'd want that to come up higher. So again, these are super useful, helpful reports and analytics. I'd highly encourage you to dig around in there. And there's so much data, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but these two reports are pretty high level and really important for you to get an understanding of where you're at currently. Okay, so we're going to stop now. And if anybody has questions on the technical piece, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A, and we'll try to get to those at the end. But for now, we're going to move into content marketing. So I think we're going to launch a poll here, Jane, right?
Yep, we have a quick poll just to see how all of you feel about your current content marketing strategy efforts. So let me launch this. The question is, how happy are you with your current content marketing strategy? Just 3 options: very happy, you're seeing great performance; meh, it's okay, could be better; mediocre; or third, you're super unhappy, poor performance from your content marketing strategy. Okay, thanks everyone for chiming in here. Let's see. I'll give a few more seconds because it's still getting some action. Okay, again, just how happy are you with your current content marketing strategy? All right, closing this up, sharing results. Again, it's a really good spread across the 3, but for the majority, I would say everyone said, meh, it's okay. So could be better, but it's not horrendous.
And that's really good to know, because as we can see with this stat here, year-over-year growth is almost 8% higher for content marketing leaders compared to followers. So anybody who falls into, that meh or not super happy category, there's going to be some really great tips in this section that I think will help. So as we dive into what does content strategy look like, we're going to talk about audience personas. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on keyword research, how to conduct a content audit, and then expanding beyond just written content. So the very first step, before you start writing, before you start brainstorming topics, the very first step is to understand who your audiences are and what those personas look like. So we have a few examples here. These might be personas that we would use at Hawk. So a digital marketing manager, a VP of marketing, and a small business owner, founder of a small company. And what these personas allow us to do is understand more in depth who our audience is. What are their goals? What are their pain points? What types of questions would they normally ask us as a marketing agency that they're coming to for help? What is it that they're looking for? And by understanding who these people are, you can appropriately write content that meets their needs, answers their questions, and addresses their pain points. So this is the very first step. And like I said, I would do this before you even think about writing. This needs to be the first step. So now we understand who our audiences are. So we need to do the keyword research and understand what types of keywords they're typing into Google and what type of content we can write that can help answer their questions. So this is a really helpful graphic from SEMrush. Again, there are other tools out there that show something similar. This is one that we like. And what's really cool about this one is you can look at your rankings over time. So you can see in this example, things kind of dipped right around August of 2018. And what you'll notice, that little Google logo right there, that's an indication that there was an algorithm update or some sort of mass shift, because Google doesn't always tell us when there's an update, or sometimes they'll tell us after the fact. SEOs just have to be really on top of, when we see big shifts in the industry, and rely on that sort of data more so than Google, because they're pretty quiet about that sort of thing. So these are helpful to identify. Maybe you got hit by an algorithm update, or maybe something happened that is the reason for your rankings either decreasing or increasing. So you can also add these they're called annotations in Google Analytics, and it'll look very similar. And it's really helpful to be able to analyze those traffic patterns over time. Let's just say you redesigned your website in August of 2018, and that's when you noticed a big drop off in your traffic and your rankings. You can go back to your analytics and say, oh, that's right, that's when we redesigned. So maybe whatever happened stemmed from that. So that's just a quick tip, but those annotations can be really helpful for sure in your analytics profile. So we've got the high level overview. Now we need to dive into, okay, what keywords are we actually ranking for? And again, using Hawk as an example here, you can see that we rank really well for branded terms. We have a couple blogs that are ranking pretty well on the first page, and those tend to have more volume than our branded terms. So you can export this data into a spreadsheet. Again, lots of other tools out there will do this for you. And I encourage you to consult multiple tools, not just rely on one. But this data is really helpful to give you a sense of where you're at now, which pages are ranking, what position are you ranking in, and what's the volume of those keywords. And the other big place to take a look at is Google Search Console. Again, this is a free tool. This is probably the other most important tool in your SEO arsenal. So highly recommend if you don't have a Google Search Console profile. It used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, so you may know it as that name. Definitely sign up for one, because this is the closest that we get to actual keyword data in Google. Google's they encrypt a lot of their data because they don't want SEOs taking advantage of it, basically, and to protect user privacy as well. But this is the closest that we get to actually seeing how many clicks, what's our ranking position, and how many impressions are we getting. So this example here is from a private investigator who works out of New York City, and you can see they've got some pretty decent rankings on high-level keywords like private investigator NYC, ranking just below the first page. And so they're getting a lot of impressions, but not necessarily getting those clicks. So these would be opportunities to really focus on these keywords and understand, okay, how do we break onto page one? So again, this is a really helpful, and you can export all of this data from Search Console as well and analyze it that way. So very helpful tool. This is a neat tool as well. It's from tagcrowd.com. This tool allows you to create a keyword cloud from your website. So you run your website through the tool, and it will show you the density of specific words on your site. So Hawk is the example here. You can see that we use words like conversions, increase, marketing, results, branded terms, drive. So these are all words that we use pretty frequently on our site, which totally makes sense given that we're a digital marketing agency. And what you'd want to do with this is understand, okay, are there specific words I shouldn't be using as much, or are there words that are missing that should be here that aren't? So this is just a really high level overview, but it's a pretty neat tool and it's pretty interesting sometimes the results that come back from this. So definitely recommend checking that out. So, okay, we've done the research. We know what we're already ranking for. And let's say we've identified search engine optimization as a keyword we want to go after. The next step is to understand what actual keywords around search engine optimization that we aren't already ranking for. Again, lots of other tools to help you do this. This particular screenshot's from Ahrefs, but use whatever tools make you feel comfortable. And what's neat about this one is it gives us some keyword ideas, including some long tail keywords. And this is a big pitfall that I see a lot of clients get trapped into, is ignoring long tail keywords as part of your content strategy. Long tail keywords tend to not be as competitive. As you can see here, the KD column in this screenshot stands for keyword difficulty. It's on a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being the most difficult. And you can see the red numbers are really, really difficult, really high competitive, which makes sense. The top two there have a lot of volume. But you'll notice as we get into slightly less competitive terms, they still have decent volume. So definitely make sure you're not ignoring long tail keywords as part of your strategy. Obviously, at the end of the day, you want to rank for those head terms, but sometimes it's just really difficult depending on who else might be going after those terms. So you'll just want to make sure that you're taking the long tail searches into consideration. When we talk about long tail, generally it's 4 words or more. So that's generally what we're talking about. So let's say we just want to see, right, what's ranking for search engine optimization. This is probably one of the most important pieces of doing the keyword research, is actually seeing what Google is showing you for these terms. So for the example, search engine optimization, we can see there's a people also ask section. And if you were to drop down those arrows, you'd notice that there's posts or pages that are ranking for those specific questions. And you can actually click through and search for those questions that way. But these are very common questions that people ask when they're searching for search engine optimization. And it's common content that's being written around that keyword. So these can be great resources for you to brainstorm different topics that you want to write about. And also the related searches, which show at the bottom of each search result, those blue links there that we see on the bottom right, those are also related keywords that it might be worth targeting. And some of them are sort of the longer tail of search engine optimization, but what is SEO and how it works? That could be a huge opportunity that maybe more people aren't going after. So understanding what Google is actually ranking for whatever your keywords are is very important to do that analysis. You might also see featured snippets, which is what this example is here. So for the query, how to do SEO, you can see that this page, practicalecommerce.com, actually has part of their content showing right in the search results. So again, if this is a keyword that you might want to go after, understanding what Google sees as high quality content that's answering that query can help you develop your strategy around that. And then looking at what traditionally has been called the 10 blue links. And again, the search results are much more complicated now than they used to be. And there's a lot more elements. We just looked at some of them. There's even more that we won't touch on today, but understanding what other websites are ranking and what content they're covering as they're ranking. So in this search engine optimization example, Moz, which is a huge company in the SEO space, Wikipedia, I think everybody knows Wikipedia, and Google support also. So again, we can understand why this is such a competitive query because it gets so many searches, but it might be difficult to beat out these big guys, especially if you're a smaller site and you don't have as much authority or trust built up yet. So again, this is where the long tail keywords come into play, but it'll also give you ideas of what type of content Google is actually looking to rank for, and you can develop your own content around those topics. Okay, so now that we've done the keyword research, we're going to move into how to audit your current content strategy and how to formulate it moving forward. So we've done this exercise with several different clients here at Hawk, and this one had some really great results. And this is a site that's not generally impacted by seasonality, but we did these steps that I'm going to walk you through here in a minute. And we saw a 57% increase in traffic to their blogs just by implementing what we're going to talk about here. So very exciting results. We've seen similar results across other clients as well. So this can be a huge opportunity, especially if you have lots of blog content built up. This can be a huge game changer. So the very first step is to pull a list of all your blog URLs on your website. And you can do that either using that site search method that we talked about earlier, or you can look at your sitemap and pull the URLs from there. So you'll want to pull all of those into a spreadsheet. And then this is going to take some time. Go through and actually plug those URLs into analytics and see how much traffic they're getting. You might be surprised at how many posts are not driving any organic traffic at all. Usually what I recommend is look at the last 6 months to a year, depending on how much traffic you get. And if seasonality is a big piece of your industry, you'll want to make sure you have that full year of data that you're looking at. But it's going to take you some time to go through and see, but you might be surprised at what blogs are driving absolutely no traffic. The other side of that coin is you'll want to check how many backlinks all those pages have. Again, you can use Ahrefs or SEMrush, or you can use the Moz toolbar to do this. But if a page isn't getting organic traffic, but maybe it has a lot of backlinks and high authority backlinks, we want to make sure that we're preserving those links on your site. So depending on the amount of content you have, this piece can take quite a while, but again, it's well worth it because it's going to give you insight into what pages have absolutely no value. If they're not driving any traffic and they don't have any backlinks, they're not helping you in any way. And Google only crawls a certain number of pages on your site anyway. So you want to make sure you're giving them the highest quality pages to crawl. So once we've done that, we've got our list of which pages might not be driving any value or which pages are. Next, we'll want to go through each one and see what the actual content on the page is. So what we're looking for are things like thin content. When we talk about thin content, generally it's anything with less than 600 words on the page. Exceptions to that rule might be press releases or like event type pages. And there's probably more exceptions out there, but anything that's just naturally going to be shorter is probably not something that's worth worrying about too much. But if there's a piece that doesn't fall into that category and it doesn't have a lot of words on it, then that's something that we might want to look at, either building more content around that topic or just getting rid of it altogether if it's no longer relevant. You'll also want to identify any posts that have either duplicate content, which is a big no-no in the SEO space, or topics that are very overlapping. Because again, the type of content that Google wants to rank on page 1 is extremely in-depth, answers, related topics to whatever the query is. And generally, longer posts tend to rank better. That's not to say you should just write more for the sake of writing more and having more content on a page, but just being aware that longer form, more authoritative content does generally tend to perform better. So if you have topics that are overlapping, you might be able to put those blog posts together and create one longer, more authoritative post. And then lastly, identifying posts with outdated content. So this happens a lot. People post on their blog and then they literally never touch it again. And that's not necessarily best practice, because there might be information in your blog that gets outdated as time goes on. Maybe you're referencing a statistic from, say, 2014 and we're now in 2019. If it's something that's being updated regularly, you want to make sure that you're giving the most accurate, updated information. And that's not just because Google likes to see you refresh your content. That's for users as well, especially in the digital marketing space. When I'm doing Google searches and I'm looking for data or context, I want to look at what's most updated. I don't want to see statistics from 5 years ago, because most likely they're not relevant. So it's good for your users too. And Google likes to see you refreshing old content as well as adding new content. So once we've done all those steps and we've gone through, we've updated what needs to be updated, we've added more context onto thin content, you'll want to repeat this process regularly. So again, depending on the amount of content on your site, maybe every 6 months to a year. And the first time you do it, it's going to take a little longer, but once you do it the first time, it gets easier. The other thing I would recommend is keeping a running list of posts where content might need to be updated regularly. Again, if there's specific stats that you're referencing, or let's say you do like an annual year in review type post, rather than creating a new post next year, you can just work off that same one. So keeping a running list and going through that regularly will help keep your content fresh. So once we've audited our existing content, we want to come up with a new content strategy. And I just want to make a quick note here, not to forget about images and video. These are huge players in the SEO space, and they do tend to get ignored. So a lot of traffic is actually coming from videos. You've probably noticed on social media, more and more videos are being used. Infographics are a really great visual way to represent information. And I'm going to actually show you guys an example of a really great infographic post. So here's one. The infographic is talking about 9 ways the learning and development function is evolving. What I really like about this infographic is that there's actually text around it, giving context into each of these different pieces. And why this is important is because Google can't see images the way that we as humans see them. They can crawl alt text, which is important, but they can't see these images. So if you just plaster an infographic on your blog and don't put any content around it, the users might find that engaging, but Google's not going to understand what you're trying to do. So make sure that if you're using infographics and video in your strategy, you're doing it this way, where you're giving context into each of the different pieces that you're covering, either within your video or on your infographic. The other great thing about these, I briefly mentioned social. These make great social sharing tools, and they tend to perform much better than written content alone, because humans are very visual, and they're much more likely to remember something in an image than in text form. So they can be great to cross-utilize that way. They can also be great for building backlinks. So just make sure as you're developing a new content strategy that you're taking these types of content pieces into consideration. So that's content. I know we covered a lot there. And one thing we didn't talk about was, okay, well, what's good content? And I'm sure that's a question many of you guys have. And I think that'll probably be covered in a future webinar, future pieces from Hawk, because it's super important. So just be on the lookout for that. But now we're going to talk about backlinks and internal links as well. So linking in general. And this is a question I get a lot. Do backlinks matter for SEO anymore? The answer is absolutely yes, they do. One study found that the number of domains linking to a page is the highest ranking factor in terms of correlation with higher rankings. And this is not news to the SEO world. It's been this way for a while. When the internet was first invented, web crawlers, that's how they crawled the web, was using different links. And so this is really the basis of the internet as we know it today. So backlinks are absolutely important to your SEO strategy. And that's why we want to focus on them when we talk about auditing your site. So we're going to talk about backlink analysis, disavowing spam links, and how to analyze your internal links. So again, lots of different tools out there. I've said that a few times today, but that's because it's true, that will help you do this. This particular example is from Ahrefs. So what we want to do here is take a look at all of our existing backlinks. Who is linking to our site right now? And you can download those into a spreadsheet. And depending on the amount of links you have, going through those individually one by one is going to be extremely time consuming. But again, it's very much worth it, because you'll be surprised at the types of links that have built up, especially if you bought your domain from somebody else or somebody else owned your domain before you did. It's something that happens really often is there's just irrelevant stuff in there that's not helping you. And in fact, it could be hurting you. So going through and actually looking at each page that's linking to you can be a huge game changer. And I just want to note quickly that there's different ways to measure link equity. So for example, Ahrefs uses domain rating. Moz uses domain authority. That's probably one you're all very familiar with or have heard of before. SEMrush uses TrustFlow. So there's lots of different tools, and they all operate differently, but Google does not use these in their ranking algorithm. They're not going to say, oh, you have a domain authority of 30, and this guy has 50, so he's going to rank above you. These are tools to help us understand the link equity, but Google has their own proprietary system that they use. They don't use any of these. So these metrics, while important and they can be helpful for you as you're analyzing your backlink profile and looking at your competitors, don't look at them in a bubble. Don't look at it and say, oh my gosh, my domain authority is 30. That's terrible. How can I improve it? Because if you look at one of your competitors, their domain authority might be 15. And so you might be way ahead of the game. So just kind of keep that in mind, that these metrics don't operate in a bubble, and they should be used in context with other domains and other links. So pick whichever tool you feel comfortable using and use that. And that's what I recommend with this. Don't try to use all the different tools, because they all measure things different ways, and it just makes it more difficult on yourself. So now that we've looked at our backlink profile, we've downloaded all our links, how do we determine which links might be hurting us? And it's a great question. And what we'd want to look at are those metrics that we talked about earlier: domain authority, domain rating. But again, those are not the end all be all. If your domain authority is at a 30 and a site that's linking to you is a 15, that's not necessarily a bad link, and you shouldn't necessarily disavow that link, which we're going to talk about disavows in a second. But relevancy is also extremely important. If, let's just say, Hawk had a bunch of links from a recipe website, that's not relevant at all to what we're doing. So those might be the types of things that we're looking for. We also want to look at anything that just looks like spam. If it looks like spam, it probably is spam. So things like casino or gambling type content, or pornography, again, assuming that you're not in those industries, because then it would be relevant. But those types of things are just not generally helpful to you at all, even if they have a high domain authority. it can be tempting to say, well, maybe this link is helping me, but relevancy is really most important. And anything, like I said, if it looks like spam, it probably is. If it has a lot of pop-ups or a lot of ads, it's also probably really spammy in Google's eyes. So use your best judgment, and there is some nuances here, and it does take time to learn what makes sense and what doesn't. So again, this is why it's important to have an expert on your side with these types of things. And then just a quick note, in this example, you'll see that there's no follow links. A lot of people think that no follow links are useless, and that's not true at all. No follow links don't pass link authority the way that a do follow link does, but Google still sees them and they still understand it's a trust signal. So in the example here with Clutch, that's a very high domain rating site, and we have a no follow link from them, but Google understands that they're not passing link juice, but they're still sort of giving you an upvote, right? Which is what a link is. It's like a thumbs up, or this site's trustworthy. So no follow links are still important. You should try to get do follow links as much as possible, but don't think that no follow links are useless. Okay, so we've gone through our link profile. Let's say we've decided, okay, we've got a handful of links that we need to disavow because they're spam. You'll notice when you go to disavow, which you can do using Google Search Console, this big scary message pops up. And there's a reason. It's because disavowing backlinks, if done incorrectly, can be detrimental to your SEO efforts and to your site's ability to rank. So just make sure that if you're disavowing links, you're 100% positive they're hurting you, either because they're just not relevant at all, or they're spam, or maybe in the past you purchased backlinks, and so that's not a strategy that's recommended anymore. Please don't do that. Please don't buy backlinks, because it's gonna hurt you. Google's gonna catch up to you, and just don't do it. So if you have done that in the past and now you need to disavow those, but again, just make sure you're positive, because this can be a huge detriment if used incorrectly. And then when we're talking about links, sometimes internal links get forgotten, but those are also very important, because while you don't have control over the anchor text that's used in backlinks, you do over internal links. So what you'll want to do is make sure that you're using internal links, one, within your body content, and that you're using keyword-rich anchor text. Although we don't want to keyword stuff. Again, that's not a strategy that's recommended anymore. We don't want to just use keywords for the sake of using them. We want to rate for users, not search engines, like we talked about before. But when we're using internal links, we want to make sure that we're not using generic phrases like click here or learn more, because that doesn't give Google any context into what the link is actually about. So we want to avoid those as much as possible. A couple other just quick tips when it comes to internal linking. Links higher up on the page are considered most important. So if you have links that are very important, try to get those in at the very top. Text links are preferable to image links. So it's okay to link images, but try to use text as much as possible, because again, Google can't see images, but they can see text. And then also make sure that you are using external links as appropriate. Make sure that if you are linking to external sources, they're high authority, relevant. For example, if we're using a statistic from Forbes, that would be a great opportunity for an external link. But as much as possible, you want to try and use internal links. And then the last thing that I see that's pretty common is linking to the homepage. Don't do that. Your homepage is going to be your highest authority page almost no matter what, in almost all cases. So it doesn't need more backlinks. Use your backlink, your internal linking strategy to link to pages that aren't going to get as many backlinks for Google to crawl. So just don't internal link to your homepage. Your homepage is already linked anyway in your logo, most likely it should be. So this tool here is from HubSpot. It's their content cluster tool, which is helpful for just giving you some insights into your internal linking strategy, what pages you're currently linking to, what the anchor text is. You can also just go through manually and look at your website and what links that you're using and update them that way. So we covered a lot of stuff today, and I want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. But just a quick recap of what we talked about today: running a technical audit, checking what pages are actually indexed in the search results, making sure your site is mobile friendly and that it's fast, the page speed is not too slow, analyzing how users are behaving on your site, looking at your audience personas and understanding what their pain points are and being able to write content for those people, doing keyword research and analyzing what keywords you're already ranking for, conducting a content audit and analyzing your current content strategy, reviewing your existing backlink profile and disavowing if needed, and then reviewing your internal links on your site as well. So Jane, I think now is probably a good time to move into the Q&A section.
Yes, thanks, Justine. This was awesome, and thanks for the recap. We had a few questions come in already. If you have any more, please submit them. I am going to launch one last poll for you guys. This is just basically if you would like an SEO audit from Hawk SEM. I know this is a lot that we went through with Justine, and some of us might not have the resources. I know I definitely leverage our resources internally to do this for me. So let us know if you would like an SEO audit from Hawk. We could do this for you and help kick off your 2020 strong. So I will keep that poll running in the background and jump into Q&A. Still taking questions if you have any. So jumping right in, Justine, our first question is from Phil. When removing older content, would you suggest adding redirects? And is it okay not to redirect? What if there are hundreds of them?
That's an excellent question. Thank you, Phil, for asking that question. Yes, most of the time it is worth adding that redirect. Otherwise, in case you do have internal links to a post that you decide to remove, or if it does happen to have backlinks, it's a good idea to try and redirect it to a page that's relevant. Maybe it's covering the same topic or a very similar topic. That's not possible. You can always redirect it to either your blog overview page or your homepage. But most of the time you'll want to make sure those redirects are in place, because as you go through the technical audit, you'll pick up on those 404 errors, page not found. And we don't want users running into those if they happen to somehow find a link to that page. So generally, yes. And even if it means there's going to be a lot of redirects, it's usually worth it.
Thank you so much. Phil, let us know if you have any follow-up questions there. Second question comes from Abel, and sorry if I'm butchering your name. If I take the text from a post and send to an editorial site so they run on their site, provided they give me a backlink, does that count as duplicate content as per Google's search engine spiders, or will it benefit my SEO via the backlink if the referring site has high DA or PA?
Great question. So when we're talking about duplicate content, it's tricky. It has to be so much of the content that's exact word for word. So for example, if you wrote an editorial piece and it was published in Forbes, let's just say as an example, and they published it, they linked to you, and then you republish that page on your website, that would be considered duplicate content. If, for example, they quote the piece and they link to you, that's not duplicate content. That would be a benefit for you because you get the backlink. So you just want to be careful about using the exact same words and language. And even if it's like a similar topic, you can still submit that for them to publish and publish something different on your site that talks about it. But yeah, when it comes to duplicate content, big SEO no-no, because actually how duplicate content works is Google is going to rank basically whatever page it thinks either one has more authority or two published it first. So it's just not going to help you at all. If Forbes has published it and you published it, yours is never going to get seen. That's a great question.
Interesting. Thanks, Justine. Another question came in from Nick, and that is, how do PDFs affect SEO?
Another great, I love these questions. You guys are awesome.
They're great.
So this has actually kind of changed a little bit recently. Google never used to be able to crawl PDFs. And so generally what I'd recommend is if you have a PDF with really great content, actually publishing a page as opposed to a PDF if you want Google to crawl and index it. If you're using gated content on your site to try and capture people's information, that's a different story. But if you're trying to get content that's in a PDF to rank, usually what I'd recommend is publishing it on a page with HTML that Google can actually crawl and index. Google's gotten a lot better recently about crawling and indexing PDFs. So this is sort of new, but generally I'd still recommend publishing it on a page. But yeah, you'll notice now in search results that PDFs are showing more and more than they ever used to. So that answer may change in the future, but for now, that's still what I'd recommend.
Awesome. I didn't know that Google was even starting to crawl PDFs, so that's good to know.
Yeah, I saw one the other day that was showing in a featured snippet, which that was like, I had never seen that before in my life. So
wow.
Yeah, they're getting better about it.
Awesome. Go Google. And we have a follow-up question from Abel is adding backlinks mostly a manual, site-by-site, door-to-door salesperson process, or are there ways to scale up this process?
Excellent question. And I wish that the answer was more positive, but it's really a manual process. If you don't want to get penalized from Google, there are places out there where you can go and purchase backlinks, on hundreds of sites, but those are black hat things. You don't want to do that. If somebody's asking you to pay to be on their site, it's probably considered a no-no in Google's eyes. So it is very much an organic manual outreach process, and it's difficult. It takes a lot of time, a lot of investment, but as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, backlinks are one of the key pieces to your SEO strategy. I think people would argue it's the most important piece. So it's well worth your time, and even getting one or two links from high authority, really relevant sites. It doesn't sound like much, but it can really help, especially if you're a smaller website that doesn't get as many organic backlinks as Forbes, for example. So yeah, it's very much manual, door-to-door, email to email type process.
Google makes us work for it, guys. Last question I think we have time for today. What's the number one thing we should do after this webinar? What would be the most impactful of these steps?
I technically recommend starting with the technical audit because one, it's super easy. Most of these tools you can get at least a portion of your site crawled for free. So I would start there because those are going to be the lowest hanging fruit generally. Things like 404 pages, or is your site secure? That's one that's slowed down a little bit recently. It's still a ranking signal, but if you're still operating off HTTP instead of HTTPS, that is a ranking signal in Google's eyes. Security is huge for them. So those types of things are generally the lowest hanging fruit and typically don't take as much time as a content audit or a backlink audit, again, depending on the size of your site. So I'd recommend starting with the technical piece and then moving into the content and backlink piece.
Perfect. Thanks, Justine. So that wraps it up for today. If we did not get a chance to get to your questions, feel free to email us at info@hawksem.com. I'll loop in Justine and we can definitely get back to you with anything. If you did submit a question and we didn't get to you, we'll address that right away. And again, this will be sent out, the recording, to you within the next 48 hours. So you can always scroll back to something that was super important and you want to refresh on. And if you'd like the slides, again, you can email us at either info@hawksem.com or jane@hawksem.com works as well. So huge thanks to Justine. I know I have a bunch of takeaways myself for me and my team to work on, and hopefully you guys do as well. That's always our goal at Hawk, is to give you some tangible takeaways that you can bring back to your team. So keep an eye out for the recording. Huge thanks to Justine, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. If you did want an SEO audit and you didn't submit the poll, you can go to hawksem.com/SEO audit. And have a great rest of your week, everyone. Happy holidays.